I love getting letters where people talk about the world's greatest coincidence theory. That's not what they call it. That's what I call it. The world's greatest coincidence theory was where people go, Colin, you don't have any proof that crime was racially motivated like you said it was. Well, I don't use the word racially motivated. I don't, because that would require mind reading. So we have a much more powerful tool than mind reading. We have patterns. We have patterns of actions over a long period of time. It's the difference between what people say and what people do. For example, why did you get married, or why did you date the person that you dated? That's one of those questions that has like 1,000 answers. And we're never really sure what the answer is. No matter what you think it is, that might not be the answer. 400 years ago, every English student knows this. When you go to college to study English, you're going to study Hamlet. And the only thing you study is, well, what motivated Hamlet 400 years ago? Why didn't he kill the dude who killed his dad? Why? Well, it's been 400 years. We haven't figured it out. But people still discuss it, and ad nauseum. And so the motivation requires mind reading. I don't see how useful that is. Okay, why don't we put it in terms Mr. Bo Sox Nation 1972 can understand. So he's a big Boston Red Sox baseball fan. So think about the difference in baseball between a person who bats 27%, or 270 in baseball terms, and a person who bats 35%, 350 in baseball terms. That's an 8% difference. That's the difference between a journeyman and a superstar. 8% difference. What's the difference between black crime and the black crime rate and white crime rate? It's not 8%. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of percent. The black crime, when you look at the black crime rate versus white crime rate, black crime is 3, 10, 100, 1,000 times greater than white crime. And all this supposedly has no meaning unless the criminal, very graciously leaves us a little signed note at the scene of the crime saying, oh yeah, I beat the hell out of this little old white lady because I don't like white people. Sincerely, Jaquan. That's the only way we can know. Unless you leave a note or you say something. Well, that's ridiculous, and you're ignoring the most powerful piece of evidence we have, which is the pattern. The patterns of black on white hostility, they just pop up every day, and we document them here every day. Why don't we just look at a couple that popped up in the news today? Here's one out of Philadelphia. Black Lives Matter says, white people can support us, but they cannot attend our meetings. Okay, no white people allowed at the Black Lives Matter meeting. Do we need to really, are you really interested in what would motivate them to exclude white people? Or do we just say, listen, I don't know what's banging around in that crazy head of yours, but I know what you do is more important than what you say. And here's another lady that comes in their defense saying, remember, fellow white people, some things are not for us, and it's okay. You'll be fine. Be ready to be an ally when asked. Okay. That is what it is. And here's a story that just recently came back into the news because Susan Rice is back in the news. But do you remember when Susan Rice made a speech last year saying, there are too many people working in the national security positions of the federal government?
Do you remember Susan Rice? She's the National Security Advisor who repeatedly lied on television about the Benghazi terror attacks, saying that they were caused by a U.S.-made video. Well, now she is back at it, saying there are too many whites in top government jobs. At a commencement speech, she told graduates that this puts U.S. security at risk because they all think alike. Rice says a diversified workforce would have a better outcome. What do you think about that?
And so we watch what they do, not just what they say. And how about down in Jacksonville, Florida? a music teacher, was taking a shower when a black guy came in and killed her. He was a burglar. I don't know. Was there a racial motivation? Who the hell knows? I'll ask Kreskin next time I see him. Let's ask David Copperfield. But in the meantime, let's recognize that in Jacksonville and then around the rest of the country, this black on white murder is wildly out of proportion.
Miss Deborah Lyles, as you all know, March 23rd, she was the victim of a horrific home invasion robbery, murder. On that day, Deborah's husband came home and found her deceased inside the house, suffering from blunt force trauma. The house appeared to have been ransacked. There were multiple electronic items missing, as well as their 2010 Buick LaCrosse. As the investigation proceeded, about 2 days later, the vehicle was located behind an abandoned house in the 3800 block of Nodder Avenue. Along with finding the car, detectives canvassed the area and located video along North Main Street that actually showed the vehicle driving shortly after the crime was committed along the roadway there. One video even showed the vehicle turning into the trailer park that is located at 40th and Main Street. In addition to the video, detectives received tips, and one of the tips that they received was that there was an individual who might have been told by the suspect that he committed the burglary and the murder. Yesterday, Sunday, detectives made contact with that individual, and she told them that the suspect did tell her that he committed the burglary, and during the burglary he murdered the victim. That individual is 24-year-old Adam Christopher Lawson Jr. He lived in the mobile home park at 40th and Main Street.
I don't know why so many people are so desperate to ignore this pattern of black on white crime and hostility, violence, robbery, assault, murder. I don't know why. I don't even care why. What we do on this channel is just expose it. We don't really delve into why some mentally ill people insist on telling us that there is no pattern and the pattern doesn't exist. Anybody who notices a pattern is a bad person. When you think about motivation for this epic level of criminality we see from black people in this country, I mean, if we ask 10 different people, we'd get 10 different answers. If we ask the psychologists, they might say, oh, that guy has mommy issues or daddy issues. If we ask a sociologist, they would be talking about poverty, housing, healthcare. If you ask a biologist or a nutritionist or a theologist, I mean, there's a million different answers. So next time we hear somebody say the word motivation, why don't we flip it on them? Why don't we say, well, okay, we don't know what the motivation is. But are you saying this is a coincidence? Are you saying all this black criminality so wildly out of proportion is a coincidence? At that point, we're going to have to ask a mathematician. I already know what the mathematician will say. It's not a coincidence. When the same thing happens over and over and over and over and over and over again, wildly out of proportion, that's not a coincidence. It's not random. That means there's something happening. Something happening guaranteed to make the black kids angry.